All right, here we go again. What are the signs of the 6 trig ratios for each angle? So please pause the video and write all they're positive or negative, greater than 0, less than 0, for negative 55 degrees and for negative 720 degrees. Okay, ready, pause, and go. Okay, let's do negative 55. We did 55 degrees. Now we're going to do the reflection of it over which axes? Okay, so instead of going up, we're going negative. So we got negative 55 is somewhere like that. We're going to dream that we're on my really ugly unit circle here. So the hypotenuse is 1. And this point will be what? I'm going to go this will be a positive x in the positive direction, y in the negative direction, right? This is down and minus y. So I have a positive x and a minus y is the coordinate for this point. I don't know what the x and the y is. We're not worried about specific values. We want to get a good idea. And like I say, when we graph these trig functions, you'll see how getting these ideas of greater than 0, negative, positive, negative, 0, or undefined, okay? Oh, and some of them are 1, or negative 1. Okay, here we go. So negative 55 degrees. So we got this. We can start with any of them. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go with tangent and cotangent. So tangent at negative 55 degrees is opposite. So here's my angle right here, right? So the tangent of my angle, theta, negative 55 degrees. I know that's a little small there. Negative 55 degrees, the tangent is negative y over x. Negative y over positive x. So that's going to be a negative number. That means it will be less than 0. And cotangent be the same thing. Cotangent is going to be, cotangent negative 55 is positive x over negative y, which will give you a negative, which is less than 0. So cotangent and tangent. So just to review, for cotangent and tangent, up here, positive over positive. Positive y over x, positive x over y. So over here, tangent and cotangent are positive. Then over here in the third quadrant, you'd have minus y over minus x, right? So minus divided by minus. So you're going to have positive here and negative here and here. If you want to memorize that, depends on how much you're working with this. If you're working with this every day, Kenda, and you spend a little time memorizing this, you can get this memorized, and you got this test, and you want your dad to be really happy about it. And you'll be really happy too, when you're in medical school and you think, oh, that summer I had to study all this extra stuff and retake that test on August the 23rd. If you study this a little every day, you can memorize easily that tangent and cotangent are positive in the first and third quadrant and negative in the second and fourth quadrant. Okay. Sine and cosecant. Sine of negative 55 degrees is going to be, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. It's going to be a minus y over 1. That's it, minus y. So that will be less than 0, and cosecant will be the same thing. Cosecant will have the same, had the inverse value, but it's going to be negative 1 over y, or 1 over negative y. Also less than 0. So here's the other part you can work on remembering. Instead of memory, I think sine and cosecant and cosine and secant, if you want to memorize them, if I'm working below, if my point is below and my angle winds me up below, whether I'm in the third or fourth quadrant, if I'm below this, then my y value is negative. And that is what determines that's what determines for sine and cosine, the sign of it, okay? I'm not sure if that made sense, but if I'm down here, my y is negative. If I'm above the x-axis, then my y value will be positive, so sine and cosine will be positive. So below x-axis, the y is negative, and sine and cosecant will be negative. Okay, except for the special case of if it's right on that, okay, right on that axis. But okay, so let's do cosine of minus 55 degrees, and that's the x value, and the x value here is positive because we're to the right of the y-axis, right? So all my x values are positive if I'm over in the first or fourth quadrant, and therefore it's going to be positive x over 1 is positive, and a positive value, and that is greater than 0. So we can kind of circle these two go together when you're talking about sines. And secant, negative 55 degrees is going to be 1 over positive x is going to be greater than 0. So we can circle those two. Okay. Here's another special case. Negative 720. What the heck? So if I go, what you could do is, since it's negative, add 360 to it, right? And maybe you recognize this number as double 360. So you wind up at negative 360. Well, that's the same as 0. So you're right here is where we are, right? We went minus 360, minus 360 again, minus 720. Now I'm on the x-axis, the positive x-axis, right? So my point, if I'm on the unit circle, is, you know, that distance here is 1. So my point is 1, comma, 0. So this time we need to do each one and be careful because we're on this special case. And if you want to spend the time to memorize this, your brain might be really good, you're young, you can memorize all this stuff. So tangent of 0 degrees equals remember it's always y over x. So what is the y? It's going to be 0 over 1. So that's why I write this out. If you want to write it down under there, here's the x and the y, right? That's my coordinates. So equals 0. So cotangent, it's going to be flipped over to 1 divided by 0. We can't do that. Undefined. Okay. Sine 0 degrees equals the y divided by the hypotenuse, y over 1. And that's 0. Y is 0, and over 1 equals 0. Now, what's going to happen with cosecant? Cosecant of 0 degrees equals 1 over y equals 1 over 0 equals undefined. Okay, and cosine equals cosine of 0 degrees is the x over 1 is 1 over 1 equals 1. And the secant is the inverse is 1 over 1 equals 1. Okay, so there's my little problems here. I'll leave that right there. So the ones that are on the axes are the ones that are well, it's all takes some time and some effort, okay? All right, another long video. Sorry these are so long, but that's just the way it is.